Hi everyone. I think we're going to get started here in a quick minute. We're just waiting for to see if any other folks join. Hopefully you can hear me, which means you got through successfully on the phone. If you want to see today's presentation, you have to do that separately through your computer, which you can do with the link on the flyer for the workshop.
Or anything, or do you want to just talk from the slide?
We'll go ahead and get started. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. Today is the application workshop for the Department of Fish and Wildlife's Proposition 1 2018 Resiliency, Recovery, and Response Proposal Solicitation Notice. We're going to walk through the web grant system and the application and talk a bit about what makes a good, complete application. We're going to do a short presentation up front, and then we'll open it up at the end for questions. So we're going to go through some logistics right now. My name is Matt Wells. I'm with the Watershed Restoration Grants Branch. And I have a couple staff with me here in the room. We have Aaron Aquino Carhart, who's going to make a presentation today on web grants and the application. James Croft is here as well to help answer questions. So, with regards to AT&T Connect, we are recording today's meeting. We will post a copy of the recording on our website, so if folks want to come back later and listen, if you feel like you missed something or if you want to share it with other folks, we'll get it loaded on YouTube and others can view it later. There are some features within AT&T Connect to help you, the listener. There's a chat feature. You can raise a hand to ask a question. If you feel like we're going too fast or too slow, you can use the message feature or emoticons to tell us so. But for now, we have everyone muted until the question and answer section, so we can't hear you right now. But again, if you want to ask a question when we get to that section, you can raise your hand, and hopefully that will all work. No video today, so all you're going to see are the PowerPoint slides on the screen. And let's see, what else? That's kind of it. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron.
Hi, everyone. So this is Aaron Aquino Carhart. As Matt said, this is our agenda for today. We're going to go over web grants, which is our new application system, and walk through the application and give you some tips and have a Q&A at the end. So, web grants. Like I said, it's an online grant application system, but it also tracks our grants. This is a software that was purchased by CDFW, so it is ours and it's customized to us and our needs. And you may be asking yourself, how does this differ from past solicitations and the different application systems that we use, like FAST and SOAR? Well, it's a one-stop grant website. So we accept your applications, perform awards, and also manage and administer grants all in one system. Another nice thing about it is that we have various grant programs within the Watershed Grants Branch, and this is one program, one system for all of those programs. Before, we had a lot of different ways that we collected applications, and this one is a nice way to have the same information and just house all of our data in one place. So it might be a bit frustrating at first to learn a new system and to get over that learning curve, but trust me, it's going to work out just nicely once everything is in one place, and we'll get more into that. So when it comes to accessing CDFW web grants, the website is shown up above. And as far as compatibility, we have all the various standard operating systems are compatible with WebGrants, as well as all of the current browsers. So we haven't witnessed any issues so far with any of those particular browsers, but if you do encounter problems, please let us know, and we'll do our very best to take care of it as soon as possible. So jumping right into creating your WebGrants account, you'll go to the website and click on the Register Here link. It'll open up a registration form, which has your standard information and your organization information. And it's really important that you affiliate yourself with an organization if you're for the applicant, because this is how we determine if you're an eligible entity. So if you are, So if you are like a third party, you need to make sure that you're associated with the eligible entity. Everything with a red asterisk is mandatory, so it's fairly standard with a lot of online forms. Again, you must be affiliated with an organization. And if you are affiliated with more than one organization, as I mentioned, like you're a third-party user, like a consultant that will be submitting for the actual applicant organization, you need to make sure that after you register, you let us know that you need to add an additional organization. And WebGrants administrators like myself, we can add that on for you. And the difference between this registration process and others is that a human has to approve your registration before you can log on and start your application. So you'll receive up to 3 different confirmation emails from us. The first that confirms that we received your request to register, and then the second one will either deny or approve your registration, and if you're approved, you'll receive your username, and then the third email will provide you with a password that it will ask you to change as soon as you're logged in. Again, this is definitely a new process, so we will do our best to give you all the help that you need. We have a special line that's just for WebGrants questions. And so this is all the contact information for the WebGrants Help Desk. And we're available from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we'll do our very best to respond in a timely manner so that everything, all your questions and needs can be answered and addressed. We're also providing different guidance documents and frequently asked questions document or facts, and those will be available through our website, and I also have links to them later on in the slideshow. Okay, so starting an application, fairly standard. You log in, and afterwards you select funding opportunities. And this is where it'll take you to this page, funding opportunities, and you will select the solicitation that you'd like to apply to. And so in this case, we only have one currently open, and that is the Prop 1 2018 proposal solicitation notice. So after you click the opportunity title, you'll see this screen, and right here where the red box is where you'll click to start a new application. So the first form that you must fill out before filling out the rest of the application will be your general information, where you will identify your primary contact, provide your project title, and identify your authorized official. And your authorized official will be the signatory for this project. So if the grant is awarded, then this is the authorized representative of your organization that will sign the grant agreement. And after all of these fields are complete, you hit save at the top, and it will look something like this in the next screen. So if you need to edit this, you click edit at the top of your current form, and this will be commonplace for every form, that if you have to change your fields or fill out fields, you would hit this button. And so you may have noticed there's only so many contacts here, only the primary, and then it lists me again as the additional contact. In order to add additional contacts, you need to do that after you save that first form. You have to go back into edit to add those additional people. And this is, again, going into if you are a consultant submitting for someone else, and you need to identify all the other grant managers that might be part of this grant project. Because in the end, after a proposal is awarded, these people who are identified as contacts are the ones that are managing the grant in the grant tracking portion of this system. So they need to be identified so that they can have ownership of the project in later stages. And this just walks you through how to do that process, where you hit edit at the top of the screen, and then in this box you can select one or more names for your additional grantee contacts. And to select multiple items, you would just hold down your control key and then select with your mouse. And then now you can see I have 2 additional contacts that have been added to the general information. So after you fill that out, you click on this link to see all of the other application forms, which takes you to this page, which is your application. And this list, these are all links to each form that is required for the application. Some of them you might not actually have information that's required for it, where what's required of you is just to go inside the form and mark it as complete. Because when you submit, you need all of these forms to be marked as complete with a checkbox or a check mark before you could submit. So I am now going to show you a live walkthrough of this website. So I'm here on our watershedgrants.wildlife.ca.gov, and I'm logging in. And again, I'll go to funding opportunities, Prop 1, 2018, And because I've already started this application, all you have to do is go up here under Current Applications and click on the title to continue. Okay. So just to orient you with some of the basics for this website, this button goes back to the main menu. Help is the help text that will open a separate window and will provide you a bit more information about what the current form that you're looking at. And so if you need a bit more help and information, that's a handy place to go. Always use the System Back button when you're trying to go back a page. Do not ever use the Browser Back button. If you're wondering why, it causes problems, and I think we can leave it at that. You don't want to lose any data or mess anything up. So please, 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 please use the System Back button, which is right here next to Print. And on this page, you'll have where you are, which is your application. You'll always have instructions after that, and then the forms to follow. Application Details is a way to look at your entire application as one page. So all of this information that you provide in these forms will show you in one continuous page. So you can read through everything if you want to take a final look or maybe proof something before submission. And after you go through everything and check all these boxes by marking complete in each individual form, that's when you would submit. So I will show you a couple of these forms just to show you what it looks like and get a feel for the navigation and the user interface. So again, we have the form name, and we give you a bit of instructions to remind you how to fill out the form, because it does jump around a little bit. So in order to fill out the form fields, you'll need to hit Edit, and that button is always at the top. And as you can see, I started filling out a few fields here. We have different types like drop-downs. We have form fields with numbers. For date fields, you can either type these in and just leave the flashes out. It will automatically populate those for you. Or you can click on the date picker, which is this button, and select it from a calendar function. Something that might be confusing at first is when you get to a table, you'll notice that there's no way to fill this in. So we have little reminders here to try and help you guys out with that for all of the tables, you'll have to save your progress and go back down so that you can click the Add button. Because they're completely different kinds of sections of the form. And then once you click Add, you'll see a new form to fill out all this required data and hit Save. So let's just fill in just an example. after you fill in that form, hit save, and always save often and frequently, and you'll see it populated into the table as a new row. And to edit any of these rows, you just click on the linked name, and then you'll see the form pop up, and you can make any of your changes. If you want to remove this, you just hit delete here. But if not, you make your changes, you hit save, and it'll return you to this screen. And then once you fill out all of your required fields, which are marked with the red asterisk, you can mark this form as complete. But you can just save your progress and finish this later by going to your other forms. But that Mark as Complete button is what will make this check mark show up here. And it'll also tell you when you last edited a form and also who last edited a form at the bottom of the screen when you're in each individual form. Something I want to bring your attention to is Form 2, the Site Information Maps and Permits. Although in all of the other forms you can save your progress while you're working on it, and you can leave, this one is a bit funky. And despite our best efforts, we haven't been able to fix it before going live. So make sure you budget a good amount of time for Form 2, since it will require you to fill out all the required fields before saving. It's a bit tedious, and maybe you can put placeholders if you need to leave it partially complete, but please make sure you go back and update it with real data so that you don't submit a proposal with a bunch of gibberish like I just put in that last form. So just really emphasizing that Form 2 is going to take a bit of time. It's a fairly long form, and it does have both the regular form fields, which require edit, and tables where you would add rows. So just please keep that in mind. Okay, and so another very important form, but it is the budget. It's a bit different than the other forms in how it's made. All of the navigation and the buttons are exactly the same though. So when you hit edit, it'll unlock fields for you to fill. For this particular form, the only field that you need to use edit for will be your indirect charges, to fill in what percentage rate up to 20% you will be charging for your operating expenses and the personnel services. So for all of these other budget categories, you'll be using the add buttons, like so. And you'll fill out the standard information. This is very similar to what we had previously in for our template. It's just presented in a different way. And what's nice about the system, so after you enter all your data and hit save, you'll be brought back to the main form. But what's nice about this system is that after you provide all the hours and rates and benefits, it will total everything for you. It will provide you a total for each individual section, the operating expenses, personnel, subcontractors, and then it will also total everything at the bottom here for you. Another thing to note, you should work through your application in order. So we've numbered everything, as I'll show you. We've numbered everything for you, and that's just to show that there's definitely an order to this. Of course, you can choose to fill out the application however you like, but I highly, highly suggest that you fill it out in order, because where it kind of gets, where different forms depend upon each other are in the project narrative and the performance measures, which is why they're ordered this way, and then all the budget forms. So your total project costs, that is the total ask from CDFW, will be populated in your subcontractor budget, and that will affect the totals for the total project. So CDFW requested amount plus all of your cost share will be, cost shares there, will be reflected there. There are forms that are simply just to upload documents. So for the subcontractor budget, we have the same subcontractor budget template that we used last year, hyperlinked right here. And we just ask that you attach it by clicking this button and then uploading with a description. So regardless of how many subcontractors you might hire, you would just put them all into one Excel workbook, and each sheet would be an individual contractor. There are instructions here, and then also within the template. But again, if you get lost, we do have this help button, and that will provide you some guidance and can also provide you with our applicant user guide. And for those of you that don't have a subcontractor, you can just mark that as complete.
They don't have a, what if they're using a sub but they don't have it identified at the time of application?
And that's fine. If you don't have an identified subcontractor but you intend on hiring one, you would still you would still need to fill this out with an approximation of what their expenses would go to. And we understand that it's an approximate, it's an estimate. We're not going to hold you to a very specific number. I think it's just if it is a reasonable amount, if it demonstrates that you're familiar with the type of work that you're proposing to do and that you have budgeted accordingly. And really that's what we're looking for. But if you aren't using subcontractors at all, you would just mark this as complete. And there you go. There's the checkbox. And once you have these forms complete, the very last form that we have for you is the acknowledgement and signature. And this is where you just acknowledge that you understand that the information that you provide may be subject to the Public Records Act and may be publicly available. So we highly stress that you do not submit personal information and other information that would not be relevant to this proposal solicitation. and then also to sign this and verify that everything is true and accurate, and you are an authorized representative of the applicant organization applying for the grant. So after that is all complete, that's when you may press submit. And if you do choose to withdraw your application, you may. It will bring you to a different screen asking for a justification as to why you withdrew. So it gives you a bit of time to make sure, did you mean to press that button? And if you didn't and it went through, you could always email or call us and we can always put it back into the system for you. So that is generally what we're looking at for the application. Okay. So I have a few do's and don'ts for web grants. And just to have a quick reminder for you guys when you're going through this process. So please save and save often. You don't want to spend a lot of your time working on a beautiful proposal just to have it blink out of existence, and that would be terrible. So wherever possible, I highly suggest working offline and then copying and pasting your answers into the fields. It gives you a lot more time to figure out what you want to say, and then it's just a simple copy and paste to provide the answers. There has been some issues where some of the characters, like apostrophes, after they're copied and pasted, turn into question marks for some reason. So if you're copying and pasting from a Word document, make sure you just paste plain text or paste from a notebook. Yeah, definitely start this application process early. I'd like you guys to check out WebGrants, see what it's about, and also see what our questions are. And also, maybe you have questions. This is a new system. There's going to be learning curves. There's going to be issues. And please let us know. And I would rather you guys try it out and figure out, this is a lot more time. It requires a lot more time than you thought. It's better to know now than the day the application is due. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I procrastinate. We're human. Everybody does it. But this one, I highly suggest you test it out and start it as soon as possible. Again, use the WebGrants, the system back button, and never your browser back button. We'll just leave it at that. Let's not play with that. Of course, we are here for you at the WebGrants Help Desk for any of your questions or issues, but if it is beyond 4 p.m. or if you're working on this over a weekend or a holiday, then you please refer to the instructions that are provided. There's a link to general user instructions from the main menu after you log in. That's, I believe, the first option on the menu. And then we have the help text, which is the button on the upper left of the screen, and the application user guide, which is linked here. And it's also linked from the website where we posted our solicitation. We also have frequently asked questions or facts that will be posted soon. and your questions from this webinar will be included in that as well. So as far as writing complete proposals, it's fairly basic. And please read the solicitation and all of our instructions carefully. We have things that change year to year, and really the most significant changes for this one are what we're focusing on and the project types that we're looking at. So I don't believe that there are any new requirements or anything different of that sort, but still it is good to be thorough and to look at what we're asking of you to make sure you're clearly addressing the criteria, that you make a tie between your project and the solicitation priorities. And I also want to point out that whenever we talk about a project, we see it as the portion of your project that CDFW will fund with Prop 1 money. You may have a larger overall project, maybe like a regional project, but we're paying for the work specifically for your engineering design or your plans. That's key to understanding what the proposal is for, what we'll be funding, and just help us understand the difference between where you need our help and where your cost share will come in. So that's definitely a good thing to make clear. And again, please manage your time appropriately. It'll give you time to proofread. It'll give you time to figure out web grants. We had the Fisheries Restoration Grants Program. They closed a few weeks ago, and they told us that the last 2 days of their solicitation experienced a fairly significant lag. So if you wait to the last 2 days, you might experience that as well. And again, it's just good practice to proofread and double check your amounts. And in the end, if you find that you aren't awarded, we do provide post-award debriefings, and that will be with our own Matt Wells here. And we can discuss how your project scored and what happened really. And we can also suggest the different weaknesses and strengths that we saw in your proposal. Okay, so we'll open it up for questions. I see we started to get in a few during the talk, but we'll address them now. So and we'll address them in the order I've received them. And if you want to speak, you can always raise your hand by hitting that emoticon button, or just send me a message through the chat function. Okay, and then after that we can open it up to see if anybody else. So I'm going to start. We have a question saying, can more than one person have access to the document? Okay, so when it comes to the application, yes. So like I said, that there's a primary contact, and that's usually the person who starts the application. And once they add additional contacts, all of those people can edit and continue the application. The only thing that the additional contacts can't do that the primary can do is edit the general information where the primary contact and the additional contacts are identified. Anyone can submit. Okay. So anybody who is included as a contact can submit, as long as they complete the entire application. And in order to see folks that you want to add to the contacts, they need to be in the same organization. So again, if you're a consultant filling this out for someone else, you need to make sure that you associate yourself with the submitting or the applicant organization so that you can see everyone in that organization who's registered with Web Grants and add them to the application. And then we also have, will we be funding easements? No, that is not currently what we're doing for this solicitation, but we will have a fall solicitation that will include acquisitions and easements. So, and I think I had a hand raised, so let's.
Hi, are you ready for my question if I'm being called?
Oh, sure, yes, please.
Okay, sorry, I'm maybe not following correctly, but I have a couple of quick, this is Michael Beck, a couple of quick questions. So is there a pre-application, I'll ask all my questions, is there a pre-application? That was our understanding. Is the grant program split into categories for planning and acquisition? And if an organization has two applications, will the registration information be the same or different?
So I'll answer the first two. This is Matt. In this round, we are focusing on large-scale implementation projects. Keep in mind, our Proposition 1 grant programs are split into two sort of sub-programs with distinct allocations of funding with different requirements. We have a Delta-specific program and a statewide program for projects outside the legal Delta. Within the Delta program, we can fund a planning project. In the statewide pot, we are not funding planning projects this year unless it is in the category of fire recovery. Our typical Prop 1 grant programs, this is the fourth round, and in the first three, we funded a number of different categories, including implementation, planning, acquisition, and then a fourth category within the Delta for scientific studies. This is a focused cycle, focusing largely on fire recovery and salmon resiliency efforts. So we're really focusing on implementation for this round, again, unless you're in a fire recovery project or doing something within the Delta. We will be doing future rounds of funding to include those other project types. What was that second question?
Application.
We don't do a pre-application consultation. We do sort of general consultation throughout the year. Folks want to call and kind of ask general questions. I know some of the other conservancies administering Prop 1 funds do a consultation phase. Given the volume that our department does in terms of applications, it's not feasible for us at this point to have that level of consultation. And then for multiple applications?
Yes. You can do multiple applications for any given organization. Just make sure that you identify it clearly as separate projects. Sometimes it can get confusing when we get projects that are very similarly named from the same applicant, and that's happened in the past. Just make sure that if it's, that we can identify like where that project ends and the other one begins. And then, is it Corinne? You had your hand up? Oh, they're unmuted. Okay. Oh, she wrote it out. Cool. Okay, so 2 questions. One, geographic limitations. If there are 2 proposals from the same geographic region, would only one likely be funded? And 2, if we're in a wildfire recovery area, but we don't have a large-scale wildfire recovery project, does that make our restoration project less competitive? Great question. No, we don't currently have geographic limitations. I mean, unless the particular priority states that we do. For example, the salmon recovery or salmon resiliency, we're focusing on Central Valley. So that's where it would be limited, but we wouldn't take 2 great proposals and dismiss one because they're both in the same area. That we don't have a quota or any sort of requirements that would push us to do that. And as far as not having a large-scale fire project, I don't really know if I could speak to that, because it seems like there's a lot of different efforts that want to get off the ground, and we're also curious to see how many.
It truly depends on what's submitted, and at this point we don't know how many proposals will be submitted for those efforts or what the quality of those proposals will be. So we can't really predict, but I would certainly encourage you to apply with that project.
Mm-hmm. There's a question. Will there be a workshop focused on the current solicitation, specifically on the changes made since last year?
No, that typically is covered at the draft solicitation workshop we hold before we put out the final PSN. So at this point, given the focused nature of this solicitation, we don't really have the means for really going back and crosswalking, exactly what's changed from the last round.
Okay, and then we have, given that sections have specific character limits, such as 2,000 to 10,000, it would be really helpful to have a running character count at the bottom of the box while you're you're typing, rather than clicking save and finding out you're over the character limit. Oh, Mr. Volan, you were after my own heart, because yes, I wholeheartedly agree, and it is frustrating, and unfortunately that is what our system is capable of. We are hoping to get a new user interface, and we're currently working with our contractors that developed web grants, and we purchased it from them. So hopefully we can have something similar to that for our fall solicitation or later. I can't really give an estimate, but yes, I totally feel you.
Character count word.
Something we would recommend would be to use Microsoft Word character count to count your characters for you before you copy and paste over to web grants. If you want to do a lot of your work in Word prior to copying and pasting, that's just a little tool you can use to help eliminate frustration.
And Noah Levy?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to send a text question, but this is Noah Levy, and I just was curious, since Matt has alluded to the fall cycle, if you could take a moment to give us an idea of when you would expect that fall solicitation to be released and what the eligible project types are anticipated to be.
Hi, Noah, it's Matt. Eligible project types will be planning, implementation, acquisition, and again, scientific studies in the Delta. In terms of timing, it sort of depends on the domino effect of everything else, but we're hoping for September, October, probably.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we have more. All right, I have 2 questions from Kristen Orth. 1, can you define large scale? And 2, is there an average amount, grant amount awarded, or a minimum maximum that can be requested? So for large scale,
Let's hear it.
yeah. So typically we're looking at something that would have a regional significance that would affect the landscape in a significant way. So it depends upon the area that you're looking at. So sometimes even if the acreage may be smaller in comparison to other projects, the impact to the area is large. So in terms of scale, it's not necessarily in area. It could be in impact. So it could be the species that are affected. It can be that it's providing a corridor or significant habitat, or preventing mass erosion and damage to water quality when it comes to like a burn area, things of that nature. And then for your second question, we don't ask for a minimum or a maximum amount. We leave it up to the grantee or the applicant, to determine how much they'll ask for. And I'm not really sure if there's an average amount I can.
We funded projects from $40,000 to $12 million.
Yeah, it's a fairly broad.
And we don't really look at dollar amounts in that way on a project-by-project basis. We're more looking at whether the budgets and the amount asked for is consistent with the scope of work and the type of work that's being proposed.
Right. So Cheryl Landrum says, it sounds as though Southern California, specifically San Diego County, would not be eligible for this grant. I suppose.
Wait a minute. Eligible for what grant?
Fire recovery.
For fire recovery, or for, because we're focusing on fire recovery.
Fire recovery.
Oh, actually, no.
So hang on. I want to make something really clear. We are focusing on fire recovery in Central Valley salmon resiliency, but we are also focused generally on large-scale implementation projects, regardless of priority.
Right.
So if you have a coastal wetland project, a cross-border urban stream project, or a mountain meadow project, or a headwater project, those implementation shovel-ready projects are all eligible, but we are also specifically looking for fire recovery and Central Valley salmon resiliency projects. So absolutely something from San Diego would be eligible.
Sometimes I forget about the conservation or the restoration implementation category that we have, because it's still fairly broad, and we tend to talk a lot about fire and salmon here. Okay, Josie Bennett would like to know, do you work with other agencies that are distributing Prop 1 funds such as Coastal Conservancy? Would it make sense to apply to different agencies for the same project? Yes, we do. We coordinate with all the other Prop 1 funding agencies under Chapter 16. Oh, Chapter 6? Oh my goodness. Pardon me. Chapter 6 of the Water Code. And we do frequently coordinate with Coastal Conservancy. So yes, we do have applicants that apply to various other Prop 1 funders and us for the same project, yes. Well, Jim Clark also asked about when the fall solicitation would be scheduled, and I believe we pretty much covered that. If we're looking to seek funding for an acquisition project as part of the fall 2018 solicitation, would the third solicitation be a good place to start in terms of what might be considered under the fall 2018 solicitation? Wait, hold on. I'm not sure if I...
Third priority?
Jim Clark, are you on the phone? Here, let me unmute. Jim Clark, are you on the phone? No? Okay. I just wanted a bit more clarification because I'm not sure if I understand this question. Oh, okay. Thank you. So the last one that was included acquisition. Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. So our requirements for acquisitions will stem from the last solicitation. And if we do have any changes to those requirements, then we'll definitely let people know when we release our draft solicitation. But that is a good starting off point, and we haven't really diverged from that. Anna Halligan has asked how much funding is available for the current solicitation.
Approximately $31 million. Approximately $31 million for both grant programs. So that's split out approximately $24 million for statewide projects and $7 million for the Delta.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, Amelia Raquel, will you be providing a list of the questions in a Word document for an easy fill-in outside of the online system? And it would be helpful to have a list of all required attachments that will need to be produced outside of the online submission. What will be available? So we currently do not have a Word version of our forms. I apologize. And as far as the requirements, they are fairly apparent when you go through the forms. So when you provide an attachment, in majority of the forms, they'll be embedded in line with the questions. So when you're answering questions about location and mapping, there'll be a place to upload it right there. So it flows with the rest of the document. As I mentioned, we have a user guidance, and that goes through every single field in the forms, like in the entirety of the application. So if you do use that applicant user guide, I highly suggest you use it for very specific questions. Like if you want to look at a particular form, or you're having, you're a bit confused as to what we mean about an unnamed subcontractor, or what we're asking for when it comes to like your anticipated construction start date. We describe what those fields mean. So it reads more like a data dictionary. So just bear in mind it's a lot of detailed information. And if you do have any other questions or want to be steered in the right direction, we can always help you out on the help desk. Okay. Mitzi Whitman has asked, would a proposal for NEPA CEQA permits for fisheries restoration project in the footprint of the 2016 Gap Fire in Siskiyou County qualify?
Permits and what was the other part?
NEPA and CEQA.
Don't fund CEQA in our implementation projects.
So I'm thinking this question is asking if they still have coverage under the FRGP, the Fisheries Restoration Grant. Yeah, could you, Mitzi, could you further explain your question? Are you talking about the FRGP programmatic CEQA document? Or are you talking about, oh wait, no, I think I'm misreading. Okay, so it would be for planning for fire recovery from the 2016 Gap Fire in Siskiyou County. I think that qualifies, yeah. I don't think we've limited a lot of burn areas, especially if they were part of the executive orders or part of the emergency declarations that we've had. Those will qualify, and that is a recent enough event that I don't think we turn it away. And yes, we are accepting planning proposals for fire recovery. How much will be available in the fall? How much in terms of funds?
Every year we have $31 million allocated through Prop 1. We're on a 10-year spending plan for our full pot of money, so over 10 years it comes out to approximately $31 million. There are instances where if we don't award all the funds, or if a project for whatever reason falls through, we might carry forward some of that additional money, but it's typically $31 million.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? I can unmute folks and see if people want to speak to their own questions, or you could always, oh, whoops, that was the wrong button.
All participants are now in interactive talk mode.
Nope. If you're not, everyone, I'm sorry, really quickly, if you're not speaking, can you please mute your phones? It'll cut down on the cross noise. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I guess.
Someone have a question?
No, I think someone was saying no, they don't.
Okay.
Oh, well, so as I was saying, if you think of anything else, or if you encounter a hiccup, you can always contact me through the Web Grants Help Desk. or Matt Wells. His information is on the funding opportunity page.
Or the watershed grants at wildlife.ca.gov email. Any of those will work. And we will be taking questions asked today as well as others and generating an FAQ document which we'll post on the website. So you could look at that. We'll be updating it as we get more questions. Typically on a weekly basis we'll update that. So check that first. And again, we will post a recording of today's episode on our website. And we'll be doing another one of these in a couple weeks.
On the 30th.
On the 30th with similar content. So if you think of other questions you want to bring, we'll cover those then.
But thank you guys very much for participating, and I wish you the best of luck.